Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 17th day of December, 2018. Well, I was looking for my athames on the last time we were here on Thursday, and I couldn't find them. The one I was actually looking for was right up there. So I don't know. I had my magnifying glass that has this cool light and stuff on it. Anyway, sorry about that. Anyhow, I was looking for it. I couldn't find it. But anyhow, this is the one I was talking about. This is the one my husband made me. You can see it's very thick. The blade on it is very thick. He made it from a bandsaw blade. He did a lot of martial arts weapons with this. One of our students gave us this bandsaw blade. It was an old one. And of course, my husband sees weapons and everything, and so do I. So therefore, he made some spears and some swords, and he made this wonderful, made a couple of knives for me. But then I said, make me an athame. So he did. You can see it's very cool. And it's a nice little hook on the other side, which is kind of cool. Anyway, but that's my main athame. Another one that I have that's more ceremonial. It's just gorgeous. It's a goddess one, and you can see the goddess is on the hilt on both sides, and she's also represented down below there in her supplication, her arms raised in supplication down there. And then inside, it looks like this. So this, of course, is not one that I would, stick in fire or anything. The other one I do, but not this one. This one's a little more, it's all stainless and everything, but still, I like to leave it just really pretty for ceremonial purposes. But anyway, those are a couple of the athames I have. Let's see, I think I'll put it over there for now. All righty. Well, anyhow, I felt bad that I couldn't find that, but sometimes doing things by candlelight and then, trying to blind myself with LED lighting, trying to look for things doesn't always work out. So anyhow, so we're still in the month of December, so that's numerologically a 3. So we're coming together in unity and wholeness. It's a catalytic energy, 3 is. You've got the energy of the 2 and the 1 coming together to create the 3, basically. So it's a very creative energy. It's a kind of a Mars energy, a fire energy, if you will. But 17, that reduces to 8. So there you're looking at another number of harmony, integration, leadership skills, practical matters, kind of taking care of business, but in a more authoritative way, maybe, Again, it's progressing on to completion with the 10. The next even number would be the 10, which reduces to 1, which then integrate. You can see how they sort of all align together because that then becomes an odd number and it reduces. So back to 1, which is new beginnings. And we're still in this year of illumination for a few more days. We've got holidays coming up. We've got Christmas and Yule. Winter solstice is upon us soon. I think it's Friday, isn't it? Something like that. And then I think Christmas is a week from Tuesday. And then we're at the new year a week later, aren't we? Each year I do beginning of each year I'll do a geomancy reading and also do a tarot reading. Sometimes I do a rune reading just to get a whole year's worth of stuff. But since I've started doing the geomancy now, I'm going to definitely do one of those and just kind of see what we can kind of forecast a little bit about what's going to happen next year or things that might influence us next year. Not so much what's going to happen, but influences we might be thinking about each month. So we'll look forward to that on the blog. I'll take probably the last week of the month to do that, get those going, and try to work on them in a way that's maybe a little more involved than what I typically do. I do monthly ones, so they'll have that as well. So there'll be a whole lot of writing going on the last week of the month. Lunar transits are going to go up again on the blog today. Those happen every 2 days, so look for those every day over there if you want, over at imsteppingaside.com. The blog is about 6 years old now. I started it in 2012. I think if I'm not mistaken, my first post might have been on December 4th. It was one of the first few days. I know it wasn't December 1st. Might have been the 3rd, but I think it was the 4th. I'm not sure. And I really wasn't sure where I was going with the blog, and I just felt the need to write. So I started writing, and it's sort of grown into this behemoth that, it's got a grimoire on there. It's got different pages. There's an Amazon storefront called a Witchin' Store, and you can go on there, and the only thing that I earn from that is advertising, pennies. And I stress the word pennies. The Amazon, if you publish over there, which I do, my books, they let you you can become an Amazon affiliate. And what that means is you can then have your own storefront that it's Amazon's store basically, but you create your own little version of it, but it takes you to Amazon basically. It's just my own version of Amazon. I mean, I have, all things witchy, herbal. There's some cannabis oriented stuff, growing stuff, lighting, different fertilizers and things like that. I even have a section on drones, so it's just something to go look at. I have my own little section of my own favorite, different things, different books, different altar items and all of that. So I have one section that's my own things that I like. And periodically I'll go and look at it and see what's still there and what isn't. But there's that, and there's a grimoire, there's a materia medica, there's a section on alternative healing, So check it out. Sometimes it's just tarot stuff, sometimes it's rune stuff, sometimes it's ranting, because if you haven't noticed, I'm somewhat opinionated. Well, you get to be my age, and it's, a crone's going to talk, and that's just that. I don't know. The days of being seen and heard are over. And that should be true for any woman. I don't care how old you are. That was the thing that parents used to say to kids when I was growing up: be seen and not heard. That was a favorite one of my mother's. Be seen and not heard. It's like, well, the oppression began early, didn't it? It was sad when it was from our own mothers. So anyway, let's count 13 and see what we have for this Monday. Well, again, we're going to pull another one because we have the Page of Wands. So pages are about youth, and they can be the princesses in some decks. So we're talking about messages and students. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and shuffle and pull another card before I show the page here. But the page is looking toward the future. So there could be a message. We're talking wands, so that's the fire elements, so our will. And then here we have the Six of Cups to support this one. You can see the oranges and the yellows, and he's holding his staff resolutely in his hands. It's kind of a crude pole, really, or a crude staff, not really a wand. Basically, what you're looking at with the page, again, is you're looking at youth, you're looking at in a sense, undeveloped potential. Messages, a seeker, opportunities being wands, maybe looking for opportunities, justice, um, living in the now. They can be a resolute friend or a total enemy, so they're kind of, being wands, being that fire element, they can be willful. So sometimes, they can be a little bit pushy, with the issues of youth and all of that sort of guiding them. It can be about transformational and spiritual breakthrough when you see the Page of Wands. But here, what's informing it is the Six of Cups. And here you have generosity, don't you? You can see one white flower in each of the cups that this woman, this young girl is sharing with this other young girl. So you're seeing kind of an alignment with the idea of youth and purity and undeveloped potential and messages and gifts, and because a message could involve a gift, can't it? And here, that's what you have. You have a six, which again is higher self energies. I look at that as higher self energies. And you're concerned with the greater abundance, aren't you? And extending that greater abundance. And you have, like I said, you've got the white flowers in each one denoting purity of expression, purity of thought. Cups are our emotions, and so this is an expression of love, sharing of abundance. And so maybe the message then today is about sharing abundance with all and about staying in that higher self energies, understanding the greater connectedness of society, of family, of home, of the whole, world, the whole universe. It's something covering my tea and it's wet. I'm going to throw it down on the floor so I don't get it. I'm like, where am I going to put it? Still doing my honey and lemon cleanse every morning. I really like it. But when you're looking again at the Six of Cups, again, you're looking at love and extending joy and happiness and abundance, balance, fulfillment, family, friendship, happiness, giving a gift. So past action bearing success or bearing a positive outcome, something coming to fruition. And so that's really kind of the message for today. But let's just do one more card just to be sure. I'm just going to cut the deck a little bit and count 13. Because if you're going to look at, well, now we have the King of Cups. See, I get myself into this mess, don't I? And so if we're going to look at this in terms of the message that's being sent, let's look at it in terms of a message and how we're going to express our will and our creativity and who we are as individuals. How are we going to stand in our own power? What's the message that we're going to give to the world? And so here we have this one message where we're going to be generous and all of that. But then you have the King of Cups, who may not be so much so. So maybe we're looking at a choice today, I wonder. The King of Cups can be, you're talking about a male figure or a male energy or a projective energy, if you don't want to look at it in terms of a male. You can look at these in terms of individuals, the type of individual they're suggesting that it is. Like here you have a youthful person. If it's a Princess of Wands, then it would be a female, or a female energy. Here you have, it's more of a male energy, but it's still a youthful energy. So here you have it progress on to the King of Cups, though. Now the King of Cups can be, he can be self-disciplined and all of that, but he can also be quite passive aggressive. And that's the thing about adding fire to water. And that's what you have with the King of Cups. It's the fiery part of water. But the King of Cups has a tendency toward commitment issues. And so I guess we don't want today to be about that, though. We want to understand that it's not just about us, that we have a message here, okay? And that we can be a message of community, or we can be the message of single mindedness. I mean, he can be a wise and loving father and a wise and loving counselor to people, but and very spiritual and very kind and considerate. But he can also, when he's not in balance, he can also be someone that would never ever do this. Okay, he would never do that. He's somebody that would sit there and hold all of that to himself, and it be really all about him. Being reactionary, being someone that is uh, is kind of expressing the duality of either being sensitive or being shallow. And for some of these guys, what they'll do is not necessarily be working that out throughout their lifetime. They're going to pick one. And so typically speaking, by the time someone reaches that status in life where they're an authority figure or what have you, how did that you have to ask yourself, how did they get there? And if it was in a way that was done that was manipulative, which the King of Cups can be, maybe the King of Cups got there in the position of authority by manipulating others. But the King of Cups is not necessarily going to be someone that is going to be generous, okay, and express generosity of spirit. They're just not going to do that. They're likely to be just a little bit more into themselves than selfless. Okay, so it's the service to self, service to others. Oftentimes, the King of Cups is about service to self. They're just way too shallow and self-oriented to really and reactionary to be able to then come together in harmony and understanding with others. So they can be a thrill seeker. They can be tolerant, they can be sincere, they can be all of these great things. But so you hope that what he's doing is reinforcing this. And so the new message is going to be one of love and compassion and tolerance and giving and sharing of abundance with all. But just understand that a king is a little iffy when it comes to things like that. So just be aware that this could actually be an expression of duality in terms of this. We have a choice to make, a decision to make, maybe. Which direction do we want to go? How do we want to express our will? Do we want to have it in balance with emotions with the Six of Cups and have things be in a way that's we're secure enough in ourselves that we can share our abundance with others, our abundance of possessions, our abundance of spirit with others? Or maybe we're going to maybe be a little bit more aloof, because this guy, he just seems to be aloof, like he's not really looking at you. So what's really going on in there? And so that's why the King of Cups, I'm not always so sure about that individual. So if we're going to talk about messages, to me it's, well, what message are you really going to focus on today? Abundance or maybe not? So let's see what the rune has to say. And my process, of course, if you've never been here before, welcome if it's your first time. Welcome back if you've been here before. Thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. What I do with the runes, and I'm just going to set this one down because I've already taken it. I just let the runes fall through my hand. And when one is there, that's the one, okay? And I craft my runes. These runes happen to be out of hawthorn. I have some hawthorn growing on my property. My husband actually brought it home from his folks' house in the valley, and before they moved, they sold the family home and moved away, and so to another place. And he went he went around and he got some trees, and he got a I think a black locust, and he got some hawthorn, and I can't remember. I know we got a rose from my mother's house before she moved, but that's what he would do. He would just want to go and take different plants to kind of bring some of our home, our original homes, or our parental homes with us over here. So in any event, I was able to craft some wands and some runes out of hawthorn, which is really wonderful. It's known as a fairy tree and a witch tree. And it's also really wonderful as a mild cardiac tonic. If you tincture the berries or use them in tea or whatever, even the flowers and the leaves in the spring are nice, but I save them usually and allow for the berries to come on, and it makes a wonderful balancing, adaptogenic type of cardiac tonic. So it keeps circulation flowing and keeps things in balance. So it's a nice mild tonic, herbal tonic you can use. But anyhow, these are made from hawthorn. And today's rune is Gebo. So it's balanced energy exchange with others. Now, Gebo, I believe, I never can remember this because I'm old now. It's the seventh rune of the major arcana of the Elder Futhark. I get in the tarot mode, see, and I can't get out of it. But anyhow, we're talking balance there. Seven represents the scales in my mind. So I see there's a lovely card, and I can't remember if it's in the Heindel deck or if it's in the Thoth deck, but it shows. And also it might be in. Might be in the Morgan Greer, where they show the seven as one star here and then three on each side. And so that just reminds me of balance. And with the center being the fourth particular position being the resting point or balance point, and then you're coming to balance. Well, here, that's what we have here, don't we? We have balanced energy exchange with others, don't we? A sharing of abundance, a willing to receive those blessings from others. How difficult is it for us to accept compliments? How difficult is it to accept gifts from people or accolades from people? How hard is that sometimes? Don't you just want to go, oh, no, and it's not really. You can tell when it's a sense of false modesty and when it's just really like, oh no, don't give me this attention. I don't want it. I just want to do these things and not be noticed. I don't need a thank you. You have people like this person, for all we know, this person could just be one of those people that just goes around and just gives, it just does random acts of kindness for people. I mean, if you've ever done that, practice it in the grocery checkout line. If you're still going through a checkout line, if you're not doing it yourself, try that. Just do random acts of kindness. Someone has one thing, let them go in front of you. See how it makes you feel. Do it without expecting anything. It's an expression of gratitude in this world that is just amazing. To then extend that to somebody else, it's actually an expression of your own gratitude, believe it or not. So anyway, we have balanced energy exchange with others today with Gebo. I love Gebo. It's not just X marks the spot, but what spot is it marking? It's a water element rune. It also is excellent for love and sex magic. It creates a link because it creates a link between forces. So if you perform that type of magical working, then you can use Gebo in your working. You could carve it on a candle. You could use it as you could actually make a larger one as an altar tile and use it as a basis for your working. If you one thing I like to do, I have a tendency to do what I call container magic. I like to keep things in a small container. That's why I like to use bind runes. That's just basically rune magic. But what you can do, one thing I like to do, I like to use little plates. And then I have, say, this, and you can put it underneath it, and you can set it on top. And so there you have the pentagram energies. You have all of the elemental energies in balance here. And so you can set this on top of it, and there you have some influences there to help with the whole thing. But then you can put your salt around it. You can put herbs in the middle. You can put sigils. You can do any number of things. You can also use a mirror, also for scrying purposes, but you can also use a mirror for the same purposes. If you want to, it just depends on how you want to do it. But you could then take Gebo and you could put it in the center, see, of the plate, basically, see, and you could use it in terms of as your foundation. In other words, I like to do things and make this as the foundation. If I'm using herbs or something, if I want to do things in a way, maybe I'm not putting them onto fire. Maybe I'm going to do it in another way, and I want to have some kind of a contained type of experience. Okay, so I like to just use something that is, you could use a bowl, you could use anything. Or you could use even just a small cauldron if you wanted to not burn anything in it. Or if you're going to burn something, you put your herbs in it and then burn it like on a piece of charcoal, or if you were just going to set them on fire after, outside or something after the fact, and then allow the energies to then go into the atmosphere, basically. So there's a lot of ways to do container magic. You can do them with cauldrons, you can do them with little plates, you can do them just with little inside a little, say, a diamond or a triangle. I have another triangle that I use that I might do stuff within. But I like that feeling of doing that. So anyhow, Gebo lends itself for that. You're bringing an energetic focus into something. So this is good for like a marriage ritual, any kind of energy exchange, any type of partnership. It means the gift, and so what you're doing though is the gift of balanced energy exchange. So if you were doing like a spell for generosity, anything that's trying to promote harmony and balance and giving and shared experiences, Gebo is useful for that. And it also just reinforces, I think, the real truth of where we're going here is in balanced energy exchange with others. That should be the message, not just for today, but for our lives, really. Because since we're one energy, when we're not in the bodies, I know we look separate, but we're actually not. We're actually, the creator expressing itself into form. So that means everything is of the creator. When they say that God is all that is, or the creator is all that is, they're serious about that, because that is all that is. I mean, I take that seriously. I take it very literally, that everything you see around you, everything is energy, and everything is energy that has come into some kind of form, whether it's in this tarot card, me, you, the computer I'm using, the candles I'm burning, the athame my husband made me. It doesn't make any difference. It's the creator focusing into form to experience that, whatever it is, whatever that tangible thing is. And so, whether it's the planet or just the air that around us that we breathe, it's all the creator manifested into some sort of form. And so when you see Gebo, that's really what that is. That's manifestation into form. That's the creator expressing itself. When we come into form, though, then ego, we get into the whole duality, we express duality here. And so we can either be a representation of spirit or we can be a representation of ego. Now, typically, we're a blend of the two. But sometimes we'll see that there's just somebody that's just all for themselves and someone else who's, for others. So now this guy, we could say, seems to be in his own moment, in his own head, in his own heart, in his own emotions. He's not really paying attention to anything else around him. And so he could be an example of someone that's more caught up in the self and not so much about this. But if we're going to be talking about, what message we want to send today and for the next few days, I would think, maybe for the rest of our lives, certainly, then we want to think in terms of balanced energy exchange with others, the magic of Gebo. Okay? So. Now, being a Monday, that's a moon day, so that aligns with emotions, doesn't it? It's about our intuition, about our femininity. It's about cycles, and that's the thing about the water element as well. You're talking emotions, but you're talking about everything being in terms of cycles. And so, we've talked about this before. If you look at a biorhythm chart, you can see the sine waves doing this. Okay, and you're going to see where, and it's going to talk about lots of different things. It's talk about your physicality, your intuition, your intellect, all of different things. You can have it talk about different things and show different sine waves and see where you're in the peaks and where you're in the valleys. And so pay attention today how you're feeling. That if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling triggered, if you're feeling an extreme emotion on this Monday moon energy day, then take a moment to wait until that subsides before reacting, if you will. You might find that the outcome is a little bit better. It's when we're in the peaks and the valleys of our emotions that sometimes it can work for us, um, but sometimes we overreact to things, and it seems to happen mostly when we're in the peaks and the valleys, when we're really emotional on either end of the spectrum, either aggressive or maybe in the more reserved depressive phase of things. And so we see it with we want to think of it as a bipolar experience in a way. um, and sometimes it just gets the better of us, particularly on a Monday. We're maybe a little out of sorts from the weekend, and we're trying to get down to business, and get things done, and sort of figure out, okay, what did I forget to do last week that I've got to finish this week, and all of that. So we can get a little rattled. So again, try today to react when you're in the midpoints of the peaks and valleys of our emotions, and express a little gebo in your lives, a little balanced energy exchange with others. Make that your focal point, and see how that goes for today. So thanks again for coming by, you guys. I appreciate you so much. Check out my blog. Again, the lunar transits one's going to be up today. I'm doing those every couple days. Somewhere in there, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to structure it. But I want to get back to writing more about all things herbal, and that's going to include some cannabis stuff. As we are going forward, we're seeing now with the Farm Bill, if it gets signed, or maybe it already has been signed, hemp is going to come back into play. It's been a long, long time, decades and decades and decades since hemp was legal in this country. And we started to see a little bit of it start in states where they were legalizing cannabis recreationally. It didn't really happen, I don't think, until that happened. Might have been Colorado that started it first. I know Oregon is now allowing hemp to be grown, and if it passes federally, then I don't see any reason why it can't be grown everywhere. In fact, we've got some neighbors down the road that are growing a really big field of hemp. And so we were a little bit concerned because we grow cannabis and medicinally. And we were concerned about whether or not the pollination was going to cross pollinate. Well, it didn't. There was no seeding to it. But I think next year we won't take the chance. Given the high winds that we have around here, pollen can travel. And so we don't want to have the cannabis crop seeded from that, and it can happen. So we just I think we'll probably put something over the cannabis in this next year when we do the grow again. But now that we're starting to see that, you're going to start to see more and more people using dietary or using hemp hearts in their diets. That's going to be okay to do. It always has been. It's not making you test positive on a drug test. I don't believe it does any of that. I've been using hemp hearts in my smoothies actually longer than I've even been a cannabis patient. So eventually I became a cannabis patient. That was in 2010, and I did that because of severe rheumatoid arthritis. And you can read about that if you want to. I have to shamelessly self-promote. I'm so sorry about this. I'm absolutely not comfortable doing it at all. So just bear with me, because it's hard for me to hear me say it again. But my very first book was called Confessions of a Back Porch Herbalist. And in it, I talked about how I healed with cannabis, using cannabis and also traditional herbs that you can find just growing around your property. And so that was basically my premise of it all, is that I can actually heal by what I have growing around me here at my home. And so that was the first book I wrote. Anyhow, you can look at it there. I also write about it from time to time. I talk about it and whatnot. But now that it's becoming more commonplace, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. And it's okay to talk about cannabis now. It's okay to talk about growing it and healing with it, and making medicines with it, that you can use to then deal with chronic illnesses or cancers or what have you. Cannabis has been around for gazillions of years, and it was part of the national apothecary, of the national pharmacopoeia forever until the turn of the century, when someone decided to get greedy and wanted something other than hemp and cannabis to be out there. So we ended up through greed and power and government and control and all of those silly little things, cannabis became a Schedule I drug. which it's not. You know, they want to say, oh, it's as bad as heroin. It's as addictive as heroin. No, it isn't. And it's going to make us well. So it's going to make the nation well. We have an opioid problem. Cannabis will help with that. You know, I can tell you that the last thing that my next to last rheumatologist, because I've had 6 of them, they just keep leaving. Well, yeah, they keep leaving. And one, I left him myself because I just thought he was nutty, but wasn't a very nice guy. And his staff couldn't stand him. And unfortunately, they took it out on the patients. And so it was hard. So I've ultimately had 6 different doctors, but the 5th one, just before he moved to the East Coast, uh, I stopped taking a drug. It was terrible side effects. And I told him, listen, I discontinued this. And he just looked at me and he says, well, then I guess the only thing I can do now is just try to keep you comfortable. And what he was telling me, see, I had been severe for all this time and for 13 years. And he was basically telling me there was nothing more he could do for me. Okay. And, you know, it isn't so much the RA that kills you, but it's the damage to the vital organs and, you know, to your heart, the inflammation. What inflammation does to a body is just horrible. It decimates the body. So you really have to control it. If you have inflammation going on in your body, do whatever you got to do. Get on cannabis. Stop the inflammation, because it's extremely debilitating on your body. And it can you know, I was told by that very first rheumatologist that people with RA tend to die on average 15 years sooner than what you would normally do. So I'm just like, wow, that's just dandy. So I don't know that that's going to happen for me now, because, you know, I got well for all practical intents and purposes, you know. And when I started doing the concentrates that I made, he told me this, I think it was maybe the second week of December of 2010, and I had already started making my harvest was in, and I had already started making my concentrates, and so I had started making the RSO, the real thick sludgy cannabis extract that we make for cancers and other severe diseases and conditions, chronic illnesses. I hadn't started doing that one yet, but I was infusing cannabis bud into coconut oil. I was also doing glycerin tincture, and then I was using fresh leaf, raw leaf, and small bud in. I don't like a lot of bud in my smoothies because I think it just makes, it changes the taste, and I don't care for it. I'm actually not a fan of medibles, of cannabis infused baked goods and things like. I don't actually care for the taste, and so I'm just not someone who's going to do that, although my husband does make candy. But I'm not someone that's into brownies or anything like that. I'm just not. So I don't, I make butter from time to time, but I don't really use it so much other than to cook with, you know. And for that, I can use the cannabis infused coconut oil. So I don't really see the point in it, but at least that's me. Other people love that stuff and they medicate with it and they do quite well, but I'm just not, that's just not me. So, but anyway, I did all of that and I decided, okay, how am I going to do it? I was also smoking and vaping, and I was basically adopting a saturation approach because I was so ill. Well, I decided to do that, and it was during the last week of December, so like a couple of weeks after I saw my doctor. I just thought, okay. So I decided on my treatment regimen, and I began it that week. And by the middle of March, I had already started discontinuing most of my medicines. The blood pressure pills I was on, my blood pressure was dropping like a rock, so I had to come off of those. And I did it slowly and monitored my blood pressure with a blood pressure cuff. While I did that, I was on sulfasalazine, and I started coming off one by one. I was on 2 a day. I'd already cut down to 1 twice a day. I was on 2 twice a day. I cut down already to 1 twice a day. And so I cut them in half, and I started reducing there. No return of symptoms. I came off, let's see, I was no longer on methotrexate, no longer on Enbrel, but I was on Humira. Now, I stayed on Humira. My last dose of that, my last injection was September 13th of 2015. That one, that one I stayed on. But everything else, I had to go on metformin during all of it because I became insulin resistant. That I came off with. I came off of that with a doctor, though. My primary care doctor helped me come off of that. That took no time at all. We monitored my A1C; it stayed fine, and so everything. So sulfasalazine, the tramadol, I came off right away. I didn't even dose off of that. I just stopped taking it. So I was on 2 blood pressure pills, the metformin, the sulfasalazine, the tramadol. I mean, I was a toxic mess. Okay. By the middle of March, I was in clinical remission. So roughly 2.5 months later, give or take a few days, that's all it took. I was off of all meds other than the Humira a couple months later. The Humira I had started playing around with and not doing every 2 weeks. I probably did that for 6, 8 months before I decided, okay, that's it, I'm done. And in all that time, I have some damage from areas that were damaged and that flare up from time to time, usually though through overuse. It isn't because I have any of the fatigue or anything else that I had problems with. So now that we're able to talk about these things, I'm probably going to start revisiting it a little bit more on the blog. Lots of people are talking about it on Twitter. Um, the nice part about being able to talk about cannabis now, if you're more and more states are legalizing, if not medicinally, recreationally, which is a wonderful thing. So I think that we'll maybe even do a little more with that. I've done a few things just about cannabis on the blog, or not on the blog, but on the YouTube channel, and so I may do a little bit more of that. There's one called, I think, Let's Talk About Cannabis, and that was one of the first things I did here on this YouTube channel before I started, somewhat daily tarot and runes. So hopefully we'll do a little more with that. I'll show you how I make things. Mostly though, I just have to say that if you're chronically ill and you want to try using cannabis to try to heal with, I recommend that you do that. Use a saturation approach if you have chronic illness. You want to attack it from a variety of different ways. So tinctures, infusions, the cannabis oil infusions, but particularly please use the raw cannabis. What you get with raw cannabis is you get the plant acids, okay? When it dries, the THCA converts to THC, or the CBD or the CB whatevers, CBN, CBDs. There's various CB whatevers, okay, but they have an A after it, which indicates the healing plant acids. Okay, it's still in the acid form. So the THC, if you use it, see, there's no psychoactive effect. I laughed because there was this one congressperson who made some comment about how there's in Arizona, the wild rabbits are going to go and get high off the illegal cannabis grows out in the desert. Oh my God, they're going to eat this stuff and get high. No, they're not. It doesn't convert until it dries, and then it becomes THC, which becomes psychoactive then at that point. So you want to definitely include raw cannabis in your diet. It should be viewed as a dietary staple in the same way that hemp hearts can now be viewed as a dietary staple. We don't have to buy them anymore from Canada. That's usually where we were all getting the hemp oils but then you had that legal in all 50 states, cannabis oil, hemp oil, not the same thing as cannabis oil. Please don't get confused. That's not made from cannabis. That, unless it actually says it's made from cannabis, it's not cannabis oil. It's hemp oil. That's a different thing. All right. Now, as to the CBD and how it compares to the CBD found in cannabis, jury's still out on that. I assume that it has. I'm assuming it has the same kind of healing effects that consuming hemp hearts would have. But please understand that is not the same thing as Rick Simpson oil. Is what's called RSO. Rick Simpson's a guy from Canada that got in a lot of trouble by growing this stuff and calling it hemp oil, but actually it was cannabis. Anyhow, he's the one that perfected the little rice cooker method to make it. I use a countertop oil extractor now, lovingly known as a countertop still. Well, anyway, it's a mega home oil distiller is what I use. And although I've done it with the rice cooker method, it works just as well. It's just you don't have to watch it as closely. You don't have to worry about it burning. So I just say invest in one of those. The prices have come down, so invest in one of those and make your cannabis oil that way. But basically, use that approach and you'll be surprised the effect that you might have. So if the drugs aren't working for you, if you're not wanting to be taking those drugs to begin with, if you want to try an alternative path to healing, then I recommend cannabis. View it as a whole plant medicine. Don't try to say, oh, I'm going to try to get the CBD versions of it, the high CBD strains. I don't want the, no, 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 no. Don't do that. Just find something you like, grow it, grow a bunch of different things, do a bunch of different strains, focus on for pain and for sleep. They're all hybrids now, okay? You're not going to find pure sativa, pure indica. Okay, indica is going to be the one you're going to want for sleep. Sativa is going to be the one you're going to want for the daytime. If you need to clean your house, Jelly Bean is wonderful. So it just it's uplifting. It's going to control pain and inflammation, but at the same time, you can still get some things done. So those are some things you're going to want to think about. Look at the sativa blends for a little more upliftment, and the indica blends if you need to sleep and rest, and if you've got severe pain. So cancer, think sativa or think indica blends because your body needs to sleep and heal and rest. Focus on the cannabis oil there, but also on other things as well. Get it into your body and you will heal. So anyhow, this turned out to be a somewhat daily tarot and rune and cannabis lecture. Anyhow, I don't know. When you think you're going to die and all signs point to it and you don't, you get a little excited about how that happens. So anyhow, be good to yourself. Check out the blog, please. I love you to do that, especially when I'll let you know when the cannabis stuff is up again. But there is a section on it, so go look at it and see what you think. And if you want to read my book, it's very inexpensive on Kindle, and if you have Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free. So please do that, and you can get an idea of how it's possible. So if you didn't think you could get better, you just might be able to. So check it out. Anyhow, be good to yourself, be good to one another. Thank you so much for coming by. We'll see you again tomorrow, and blessed be.